Back with controversial fuel subsidies and Nigeria's rising debt profile among the major issues capturing headlines in Nigeria these days. Wole Famurewa caught up with Nigeria's Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala earlier today to hear more on these issues.
I think Mr. President set up the task force. So it will be presumptuous of me, to talk about what the president is doing. But let me, since, when the Ministry of Finance set up the original task force of Ige Mokwede that has now been changed with additional people into a presidential task force. The objective of that was to verify the arrears of 2011 because of what happened, that we ended up as a country paying 2.19 trillion naira in terms of subsidies. And that verification led to the fact that, look, there were some companies, that claimed subsidies that they should not have. And now we verified and found that, about 422 billion in terms of payments that probably should not have been made is what we found. And we would like to have that money back and for the people who were fraudulent to be prosecuted, because that's what Nigerians are looking for. The president has taken this on and created, meaning he's taken ownership and created this presidential task force with 1 week. So it's not just that he's creating another committee. He gave them 1 week, which, as you said, ends at 5 p.m. tomorrow, to allow some of those companies who said that they were not given a chance to defend themselves and present additional papers to do so, which I think is a very smart and sensible thing to do. Give them one more time, let them come. If they've got papers to disprove the work of the committee, they are free to do it. Once that deadline is over, it means we go into the phase of trying to recover the monies from those who took them, and then also for those who were fraudulent, to have them investigated and prosecuted.
Now, recently you commented on Nigeria's debt profile and the need to watch that. Give us your thoughts on the government's debt strategy going forward, because clearly it's a concern for you at this stage.
With regard to Nigeria's debt, our debt ratios, looking at international norms, are quite comfortable. So I talked about debt to GDP ratio. If you just look at federal government debt, external and domestic, you are at about 17% of GDP. You add the states, so far as we've reconciled them, you are 21%. For the peer group of Nigeria, it should be, the international norm is about 40% of GDP. So you can see we are way below that. The same thing with debt service to exports. The ratios are also very good. Now, within that, I said we should check our domestic debt. External debt is only 2% to GDP. So, but you need to look at trends and then to begin to arrest if you see a worrying trend. So what I wanted to point out to Nigerians, there are many of them who believe that domestic debt is okay because it's in your own currency, and that it's external debt. So they're often coming out saying debt, things are bad with our debt without really looking deeper into what it is. The external debt to GDP is not at all an issue. It's 2%. It is the domestic debt that we need to watch so that we don't overborrow domestically. First of all, you crowd out the private sector when you're in there. Second of all, interest rates for our domestic bonds are quite high. So we need to curb that, because if we don't, you'll be increasing the stock of debt. So what are we doing? The way forward is we've taken action. The first thing is that we've reduced the fiscal deficit of government so that the borrowing requirements will be lower. And we've actually lowered between 2011 and 2012 budget by 100 billion naira, the borrowing that we are doing. And we will continue to successively each year until 2015 lower the borrowing requirement until we get to a level that, from our analysis, is sustainable. So we are doing something with the flow. With the stock, we have started a sinking fund so that we save money each year, starting from 2013 budget, to enable us to retire the bonds that are coming due. So I think that with that sensible approach, we have the situation in hand.
But do you have any targets for debt to GDP?
We have a ceiling. We imposed on ourselves a ceiling of 25 to 30%. So we don't want to exceed 30% of GDP ourselves. Yeah, and that will be well below the 40%. So that's where we are going.